common symptoms. Allergies via ingestion have quite a range of symptoms. Food allergies are mostly to blame in this.
I'm in the middle of my homeschool class, but I just wanted to do something real quick. There's a wreckage here that I just found while I was wandering down to Beecher's Hope. I came across this. What does he say? Found a wagon from a circus, all lost and abandoned. I see something in there. Is that a skull? I swear to God, I can see a head right there. The hell? The skulls are attached to the same body. What's up here? Traveling between worlds since the dawn of time. Twin beauties in one body. Four arms. Creepy. There's another thing over here. Madame Irene tells your fortune, only 1 cent. Oh my God, that is creepy. Alright, I got $251. I have $251, but I have 0 cents. I'm gonna punch it. Can I punch it? Is that a thing? Oh God, I punched it. What?
I have reached into the great beyond for your vote. You have taken to wine, women, and salt too much. Maybe try to eat first.
She said to eat. I'm gonna get obese. She told me to eat. I'm guessing that means I must be obese. I must be very, very fat. I must have obesity. Am I right? Eat. I must have obesity. Okay, I could still hear her singing out here. I was like, wait, what?
We've all felt it before in one way or another. That certain variant comes along and all of a sudden our eyes itch, our nose runs, our throat tightens, and then a perfectly healthy person becomes miserable having to deal with their allergies. People experience allergies in different ways and suffer in different intensities, but overall, it can be explained by an overimmune response to foreign substances that enter the human body. These substances are normally harmless, but in some people, the immune system overreacts and causes an allergic outbreak. What is an allergy? An allergy is defined as a state of hypersensitivity to a normally harmless environmental antigen. It results from the interaction between an antigen and antibodies produced by earlier.
You may not know where you are going, but you should cut your hair before you get there. You have come to the great Madame Irene. Seeing your future, listen closely. Many a wise men stood at the doorstep of the temple with flowing hair. You should cut yours. I have been waiting for you. Listen, as Madame Irene is an endless fountain of wisdom, as long as you have the seeds. While you have teeth for their wisdom, they will only need to be expressed under sedation. If you are so greedy for knowledge, I suggest visiting a place of learning.
Oh my god, I did not think I was gonna be able to get out of there. I thought I was gonna have to shoot my way out. So cut my hair and eat. Alrighty. Let's head over down to the saloon. $251. Got it. I'll spend a bunch of money on eating down there. And I'll get my hair cut at the barber.
Allergies are known to be one of 4 forms of hypersensitivity, specifically type 1 hypersensitivity. They are characterized in this way by
So many buffalo!
specific white blood cells
Holy crap!
and basophils by the antibody IgE.
Dude, so many bison. There are so many bison.
From a runny nose to breathing difficulties or even death by asphyxiation. There are 4 types of
My
sources
dudes,
from which
look.
allergic reactions
Oh my god,
stem.
look at the bison.
Skin contact, injected materials, ingestion, and inhaled
I'm gonna chase this one.
materials. Depending on the individual's immune system response to the foreign body, the degree of symptoms vary. Inflammation of the affected area occurs, and the person is almost immediately hit with the adverse effects that the allergen caused by entering the body. Skin contact allergens are allergens that cause an immune system response by way of diffusing
Hey, buddy.
the skin and causing irritation of the area.
Oh god.
These are most common when it comes to skin allergies. The infected area becomes inflamed, red, and itchy. Poison plants such as poison ivy, animal scratches, pollen, latex, and metals are common skin allergens. Depending on the immune system sensitivity, adverse effects from even minimal contact with any of these allergens.
I can't wait till I eat so much she calls me overweight.
Injected materials such as
That'd be hilarious.
insect venoms,
Like,
vaccines,
you ate too
drugs,
much.
and therapeutic
Go
proteins
lose
can
weight.
also be another cause of allergies. In this case, insect stings are a good example. If a person is allergic to a bee and is stung, they must seek medical treatment immediately, since the venom is slowly being distributed throughout their bloodstream.
It made me restart the video, but I'm fine with that.
Blood vessels to constrict and lungs and throat to close, resulting in difficulty in breathing for the person. Allergies via injected materials have much
Nearly
more
shot his
serious
own horse.
consequences than skin contact allergens, with difficulty in breathing being the most common symptom.
This is my low honor,
Allergies via ingestion,
which I'm always going to be playing on. Even if I do get my high honor profile as John, I'm going to screw that because you guys know how I am. I'm a psychopathic murderer.
And inflammation throughout the body is common. Ingestion allergies often cause airways to severely itch and eventually close up if medical treatment is not found. In a mild case of ingestion allergies, diarrhea can occur. The allergen infects the gastrointestinal tract and stomach area, and the allergen
I don't want to talk about that.
body. In severe
Supposed to be
cases,
school.
such as with the baby in the picture, the allergen irritates
That guy was
the
talking to me before I let him into a back alley and stabbed him 36 times. Don't know why he's not dead.
Probably the most common type of allergens are inhaled allergens. Seasonal allergies to pollen, mold and mildew, and other such
Just
environmental
facial hair.
factors cause our eyes to itch and water, and the sneezing never seems to cease. Dust mites, shown in the picture, are another common inhaled allergy, along with animal dander. These types of allergies also have a wide variety of symptoms, including
I'm still trying to get my hair to grow out long, so forget that.
Sneezing and itching.
I'll just do my beard.
So
That's
just
all.
how exactly do allergens affect the immune system?
Alright, how close
Allergies or
is
type
this
1
one?
hypersensitivity reactions are
Slow us
caused by
down here.
protein allergens binding to IgE molecules and activating
This is the first time I've been to Blackwater and not murdered anyone. Except for when I had to go collect the money. But I later on attacked someone.
Blood vessels dilate, and eosinophils and basophils enter the affected area. This chart shows a summarized explanation of how allergens act once they enter the body.
I remember when I slammed a dude's head through a window.
B cells are alerted and turn into plasma cells, which release IgE. IgE binds to the mast cell and releases histamine the next time the allergen is introduced to the body. The histamine causes the allergic reaction once the familiar antigens enter the human body once again. What are some strategies used to limit the adverse effects that allergens have on the immune system? One way is to prevent the allergen from ever coming into contact with the person. The picture shows a common allergy test that is performed to determine exactly what individuals are allergic to. The person is subjected to a number of different allergies via pinpricks encoded with the allergens. If the area becomes inflamed, the test is positive, and the person now has knowledge of exactly what they are allergic to. By knowing what you're allergic to, a person can modify their behavior or environment so that contact with the allergen is avoided. Pharmacological treatments are also available if the person is not able to modify their lifestyle to avoid the allergen. Pharmacological treatment involves the use of drugs to reduce the impact of any contact with the allergen. The drugs block the effector pathways of the allergic response and limit the inflammation after IgE-induced activation of the mast cells. Seasonal allergies are often treated in this way since it is near impossible to control allergens in the outside air. This is also an option for people who are allergic to pets but refuse to modify their life to not have a pet. Antihistamines, such as Allegra, Singulair, and Benadryl, are available to help control allergen response by preventing histamine from being released into the body. Finally, there are immunological treatments available to help control the effects of allergies. This type of treatment is involved with the prevention of the production of the allergen-specific IgE. It is achieved by modifying the antibody response so that it shifts from the dominating IgE to that of IgG. This is given in a series of shots, a procedure called desensitization. The dosage of the allergen injected gradually increases until the patient is eventually desensitized to the allergen. Allergy shots are usually recommended for patients with severe allergies or many different allergies which cannot be prevented or sufficiently treated by using antihistamines. Allergic reactions are very common throughout the U.S. Millions of people suffer each year because of the over-immune response. The symptoms that occur after IgE is released from plasma cells and then histamine is released in the bloodstream varies from person to person. By better understanding why allergies occur and what you're allergic to can greatly reduce the suffering of many people.
Hope I'm not scrubbing too hard.
it's Mr. Anderson, and welcome to the Immune System Podcast. In this podcast, I wanted to start with a little history. These are some beautiful illustrations from the Florentine Codex, which is thousands of pages long. It was created over about 45 years by this guy, this friar, and basically what he did is he studied Aztec culture and how it changed over his lifetime. So we've converted a lot of this to English, and you can find some of it on Wikipedia. It's just fascinating. So you can see these rituals and these chieftains, and he would describe all of it. But a sad part of that is that he describes how smallpox came to and devastated the Aztecs. And it's one of the reasons why the Spanish were able to conquer them. And so they didn't have immunity to it, and that's what this is about. So basically what happens with any kind of an infection, a viral infection like this, is you have a virus, and that virus is essentially going to gain entry inside your cells. It's going to use the machinery of your cell to make copies of itself.
He was talking about a dick. Have you ever grabbed anything else besides soap?
It's going to
Ew.
destroy the cell, and it's going to spread off to infect other cells. So that seems awful. In other words, when you get a cold, what's happening is that your cells are making viruses, which are spreading to more cells. And if it weren't for our immune system, we would be devastated by all the viruses that are around us. And so we have to have protection. And so I like the analogy of a castle. A castle needs protection as well. And so if you're building a castle, you have to think about a few ways to defend yourself. First of all, you have to defend yourself from the outside. So it's good to have a moat. It's also good to have a really large wall, so it's hard for people to get over it. And this castle's great because it's got water on all sides of it. You also have to have soldiers, so if anybody were to ever get close to the gate, you could shoot them with arrows or pour hot tar on them. But if they were to breach the wall, you have to be able to fight them there as well. But probably when you're defending a castle, more important thing is you have to have intelligence. You have to have spies that are sent out to surrounding areas to do reconnaissance and figure out what's going on, to recognize invaders when they come. And so I'm going to quit talking about castles, and we're going to talk about the immune system.
That was a big mistake.
Inside us.
I meant to press triangle to see the services.
Castle wall. Let's start with that. And so what protects us from infection? Our castle wall is going to be our skin. And so what our skin provides us with is it provides us with a barrier. So there's going to be a barrier of cells, dead cells on the top, and keratin on the top. It's also going to have a really low pH, which makes it hard for any kind of bacteria to live there. And we're also going to have chemicals on the surface of our skin that are going to disrupt certain viruses, and also we're going to have bacteria that crowd out our skin, and so it makes it hard for other bacteria to gain entry. We're going to have what are called normal flora that just live on our skin. And so all of this is going to provide protection against infection. But occasionally that gets breached. Occasionally you cut yourself, or a pinprick or something like that gains entry. And so that would be just like the soldiers making it over the wall. So
hold on, guys.
We have
Sorry, I was just about to let him in.
plug it up for one thing, but we have swelling, so we're going to increase the heat. But basically, we're going to send soldiers in there. Those soldiers are the macrophages. Those are going to invader is called an antigen. So basically, what a macrophage will do is it'll notice that this is not part of our body. It'll grab onto it, take it into the macrophage. Lysosomes and enzymes into it, break it up. It'll lots of times present that on its surface, but eventually gets rid of it. And so this is an actual picture of a macrophage, and you can see it's grabbing, I don't know if it's viruses or bacteria on either side. And so that's great. But the one thing about it is that it attacks anything that's not us. In other words, if you get a heart implant from someone else, or you get a heart transplant, those macrophages are going to attack it as well. It's going to kill that. And so we also have what's called a specific immune response. Specific immune response is more like the spies. And so basically, here's an antigen again. An antigen is going to have specific proteins on its surface. But to fight that, we use what are called antibodies. And so the name antigen means an antibody generator. In other words, it generates the formation of antibodies. So what are antibodies? Antibodies are going to be proteins produced by our body. And basically, they all look the same. They're this Y kind of a shape. So they're a Y shape like this. We produce almost an infinite number, an infinite variety of them. But at the top of the Y, you're going to have different shapes. In other words, you're going to have a shape that looks like this, but you're also going to have an equal shape that might look like this. You're going to have an equal shape that might look like this. And so we're going to have all of these different shapes at the top, but we're only going to produce the shape for the one thing that we're infected by. So basically, the antibody will dock to the antigen. When it does that, basically it marks the antigen so macrophages can find it. And it also makes them harder for them to do their job. Imagine if I had another antibody here and another antibody here and another antibody here. It's hard for them to do their job. And so when you gain immunity, specific immunity or specific immune response, what that means is you have the ability to produce these antibodies. And that's why when you have a cold, you're not going to get that same cold again. And so basically, how do we do this, or how does this work? Well, we need what are called lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are a type of white blood cell. So basically, there are two types of lymphocytes. There are B lymphocytes, and then there are T lymphocytes, which we'll get to in just a second. Okay, so B lymphocytes are made in the bone marrow, and they're responsible for a humoral response. Now, this term I'm going to show you a couple more times in this podcast. Humoral means in the fluid or in the humors of your body. So that means in the blood, in the lymph material, in the lymph vessels, in the interstitial fluid. And so humoral response, what I want you to think about, is going to be anytime there are viruses free in the fluids.
Shut up about my hair.
And what the B lymphocytes do is they produce antibodies. So how does that work? Basically, you have a naive B cell. It's going to sense the shape of the antigen. I'll tell you how that works in just a second. But basically what it's going to do is it's going to produce antibodies. And so what B lymphocytes do is they produce all of these antibodies that are specific for the antigen. So in other words, if we're infected by this virus, we'll call this virus A1, and we're going to produce antibodies for that specific antigen. We're also going to produce memory B cells so that we have that immunity for the rest of our life. So those are the B lymphocytes. And so you might think, if they attack the viruses out inside our body, then what do the T lymphocytes do? Well, the T lymphocytes are responsible for cell-mediated response. What does that mean? They're going to target and kill the cells inside our body that are already infected. Okay, so what are the T lymphocytes? Where are they made? They're made in the thymus gland, which kind of sits on top of our heart. Basically what they do is they create what are called killer T cells or killer T lymphocytes. And so a killer T cell is an activated T cell. Basically what it'll do is it'll find any of the cells inside our body that are infected with a virus. It'll dock next to them and it will kill our own cells. And so it's going to kill any of the cells inside our body that are infected by the virus, or even cancerous cells. It's going to kill them. So it's made in the thymus and it produces cell death inside us. And so the T lymphocytes are responsible for the cell-mediated, killing cells inside our cells that are infected. B lymphocytes are going to be in the humors of our body. And so if I were to summarize this a little bit, this would be the humoral response up here. So what type of cells are responsible for that? Those are going to be the B cells. And here's the cell-mediated down here. Those are going to be the killer T cells. And so before we get to that, let's look over here on the left side. So basically what's happening, we've got an antigen that is eaten by a macrophage. That macrophage is going to chop up that antigen. It's going to present pieces of it on its surface. And so we use a chemical called MHC2. It's major histocompatibility complex 2. It's going to present the shape of that antigen on its surface, and now we get this cell right here, which is super important. It's called the T helper cell. What the T helper cell is going to do is it's going to dock, and it's going to physically sense the shape of that antigen. It uses another protein called CD4, and it's going to sense the shape of that antigen. The helper T cell is responsible for initiating both the humoral and the cell-mediated immune response.
I wanted to go
Let's
pet
see
the
what
horse.
Helper T cell is going to do. Helper T cell is going to tell that shape to the B cells, and so it can produce more antibodies. It's going to activate macrophages, so it can kill more of them inside the humors of our body, so it's responsible for that humoral response. And the helper T cell is also going to activate the killer T cells, so they can kill the cell-mediated or excuse me, the cells that are
I like
infected.
how I'm not even listening to this
So
one
if it
bit.
isn't for these guys, if it isn't for the helper T cells, we're out of luck. Now, sadly, helper T cells are the cells that are infected by HIV or people who have AIDS. And so you can see why that's a really bad thing, because without the helper T cells,
I'm just gonna
we
skip
can't
by
fight
doing
normal
this and go
infections. If you
faster.
have HIV, you don't die of that, you're dying of normal infections that we would fight off. So let me kind of do this in cartoon style if we were to animate it again. So what we've got here is our antigen. Remember, that's our invader. And so basically what's going to happen is it is going to
Trust me.
be eaten
No,
by
here
a
it is.
macrophage. So the macrophage will take it in. It'll secrete enzymes into it, which are going to digest that antigen. It'll get rid of it, but it's also going to grab onto a little bit of that. It's going to grab on with this major MHC. It's going to take its shape out to its surface, and now we have helper T cell. What's helper T cell going to do? Helper T cell is going to dock with that macrophage, and it's going to sense the shape of that antigen. It's now going to become an activated helper T cell. So thinking back to that flowchart just a second ago, where does it go next? Well, it can activate macrophages, but more importantly, it's going to activate B cells. So now we've got an activated B cell.
I just gotta fill
It's gonna
one more thing,
activate killer T
and
cells.
this tour will be done.
And now, through clonal selection, it's basically they're going to make clones of themselves. We're going to have a whole bunch of activated B cells. We're going to have a whole bunch of activated killer T cells. So now, thinking about it, this on the top is going to be the humoral response up here, and this down here is going to be the cell-mediated response. And so basically, we can fight those antigens out here in the humors of the body. We do that by sticking antibodies to it so macrophages can eat it, break it down. We also inactivate them a little bit. But if you look down here, that killer T cell is docked with a cell inside our own body that's already infected by an antigen. And so it's going to secrete enzymes into it that are going to break that down. So it's going to kill that. And so basically what we've done is we've killed them in the humors or in the fluids of the body, and then we've killed cells that are infected. And so this takes a while, but it's going to be your immune response, and it's specific to that antigen. Until we get that specific antigen, we're not going to produce the antibodies for it. So let's talk about a cold, because I'm getting a cold right now. So basically what happens is you're exposed to the cold right here. The virus is going to start reproducing inside my body, and it's going to take me a little while for me to start building B cells and killer T cells. And so there's going to be a lag time, but essentially I'm going to produce a whole bunch of antibodies and effector T cells. So that's going to increase inside my body, and this time right here is where I actually feel like I have a cold. So
I'm
this
sorry
is me
guys, I just
feeling like
need to
I
do
have a
these
cold.
chores.
But really what's happening is it's my body fighting and killing off all the viruses. And so let's say I get exposed to that same cold again in
Not
the
for
future.
honor,
Well, in the
because
future,
you
I'm
guys
going to
know
get
I don't care
exposed to
about
it.
honor.
But since I have so many antibodies, I'm going to produce them so quickly, and since I have these memory B cells and memory T cells that are just hanging out, I'm going to fight off and kill that infection before I even realize that I have a cold. And this could be years later. Now, how could
Don't
colds
poke
get
that
around
cow
this?
in
And
the
they do
ass
get
with that
around it.
pitchfork,
Well,
Uncle. You
they
hear me?
can have a bunch of different types, and colds, I think, have 100 different types of rhinoviruses. But they also can mutate, and if they mutate, they change the shape of the antigen, and now those antibodies aren't going to work anymore. And so that's the immune response. If you think of it this
this
way,
was a whole lot
it's like
faster, I
keeping the
guess.
invaders out of the castle. You're at least one step closer to understanding the immune system, and I hope that's helpful.
video's over. Immune system. Actually, you really need to learn about this stuff. I'm gonna be doing this until it goes up to grade 6. Once these things get past grade 6, I can't do them. And if this thing does go up to grade 6, that means I can't do any of the quizzes either. Dang it. Because in class, we were doing human body, so I needed to do this.
The human immune system is the best doctor in the world. The immune system works 24
But it's not a
hours
doctor.
to protect us from enemy invaders. The bone marrow and the thymus are our main lymphoid organs. The bone marrow creates red and white blood cells. White blood cells are our immune cells. Like an army trains its infantry, air force, and navy, our thymus trains immune cells called T cells to perform specific functions. The immune system also consists of peripheral lymphoid organs like the tonsils, spleen, lymph nodes, and appendix. For example, swollen lymph nodes under the arms show that our immune cells are fighting an infection. Now, let us look at our very protective immune cells. B cells are immune cells that shoot specific missiles at invaders. These missiles are called antibodies, or immunoglobulins. In this animation of a bacterial invasion, B cells jump into action by releasing a bacteria-specific antibody. This antibody locks onto a bacterium and kills it. Another interesting immune cell is the macrophage.
The wagon's still there.
The macrophage is both a
Oh my
messenger
god.
and a fighter.
Alright, let's do some more chores.
When it sees enemy
Go to
cells,
sleep,
it will
and
call
then
other immune
go back.
cells to the battlefield. It
I like
puts
how I'm doing
enemies
chores
by
in
grabbing
game and working at home.
Look at this macrophage. See how it engulfs a dead blood cell and then returns it to its normal shape. There are also several types of T cells that join in the fight. One powerful T cell is the NK cell, or natural killer cell. It kills enemies by releasing certain chemicals. In this animation, the NK cell seeks and destroys a growing cancer cell. So you see,
Is that freaking
the immune
explosion
system is
noise?
highly intelligent. It works around the clock to defend us from deadly enemies. Without the immune system, we could die in a matter of hours. But why do so many people still get terrible diseases with such a formidable army inside them? It is usually because they have a malfunctioning immune system.
She milking a cow? Where is she? Oh, yeah, she
Let us
was.
see some
I think.
examples of a
Maybe not.
malfunctioning immune system. Rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disease. The immune system
Poke her with a
mistakes
poop.
our joints
I
as
poked her with
enemy
a poop.
cells and tries to destroy them. Invaders can enter our body at any second. A cut in the tongue or skin creates opportunities for infection. Thankfully, our immune system is always working to protect us.
Okay, I like how it actually allows us to do this. I'm not saying I like how it allows us to actually shit shovel.
The immune
Like,
system defends us
I don't like
when it
shoveling
becomes
shit,
weak.
but I like how it allows us to do
Cancer cells
chores.
could start to grow. There is currently no effective
I want to be
drug to
I want to
stop
be a good boy.
hepatitis. We must depend on our immune system to fight such foodborne viral infections. A diet rich in plant foods keeps our arteries clear for immune cells to flow smoothly. But a high-fat diet can clog the arteries, jeopardizing the immune system. It is evident
I know that
the
doesn't gain
status
me
of the
honor,
immune
but that's
system
fine.
is a key factor in maintaining one's health.
Oh, hey, Uncle. Another day on this earth, eh? All the folks I could have run into. Hey, you're a lucky man, John. You were blessed. Blessed. Is that the word? Well, we've earned the breeze long enough, I reckon.
Alrighty, we'll do this one more time. Then we'll go do some more chores around the farm.
It's springtime.
Oh God,
That means
there
that
she
the
is.
flowers are in bloom, but that also means that pollen's in the air and allergies are everywhere. So we wanted to get to the bottom of that and find out why we have allergies.
We get allergies.
She sleeps in a dress, apparently.
To get allergies from our parents, but then it depends what we're exposed to. So if you're going to become allergic to ragweed, you have to be exposed to it, and so on exposure, they develop the reaction.
Why do you have to be exposed to be allergic?
So the protein, this IgE that's in the body, is only made upon exposure to certain things that you're predisposed to make it to. So you have to be exposed to it. It's a complex process, but we make a protein in our blood that recognizes the thing that we're going to react to, like ragweed antigen or B venom. And then that fixes on the surfaces of certain cells in the body that live in tissues called mast cells. And then when we become re-exposed to that material, say a bee venom and a bee sting, then those cells are recognized and mediators are released and we get allergic reactions. So if these cells are activated in the lung, you get asthma. If they're activated in the skin, you get hives. If they're activated in the GI tract, you get symptoms of food allergy.
Is it like a defense mechanism in a sense, or
So no one really knows why we have this effector.
That's strange.
That's strange.
Just have sex already so we can get this cutscene over with.
System of this protein called IgE in the blood and mast cells, but it's generally believed that it's a defense system that evolved over many thousands of years to defend us against certain kinds of infections and insults, such as parasites. In our 20th century, where we are very careful not to expose our children or ourselves to infections and where they're good antibiotics, we tend to have more allergies, and it's believed that if we had more infections, that our responses within our body,
Am I really
our immune
standing on the
system would
bed?
move away from allergies to defend ourselves against microorganisms.
Yo, I didn't even go to
Have that
sleep.
exposure, then it's believed that allergies are increasing.
You fucking
It's
serious?
not the only explanation, because it's believed that pollutants of the 20th century, diesel particles and things like that, act as kind of accentuators of the ability to become allergic. And that may have something to do with the rise in allergic diseases also. Not only is there a rise in inhalant allergies, but there's a rise in food allergies too.
Thanks for watching Why Tell Me Why. I hope you enjoyed the segment. Any other questions, please email me at whytellmewhy@discovery.com.
Yeah, screw getting changed. We'll go on our PJs.
I am consulting the plan for your fortress. Yes, here it is.
Every year, up to 2,000 people in the U.S. and Canada die
Food.
from anaphylaxis, a serious allergic reaction. The most common causes are allergies to peanuts, insect bites, and seafood. But not all anaphylactic reactions are severe. They can be mild, with subtler symptoms. And most people don't know that if you've had a mild reaction in the past, you're at risk of having a life-threatening one in the future. More from Mayo Clinic on a new anaphylaxis awareness campaign. John Lindy's reaction came on fast.
I started to feel
Keep your lips wet with whiskey.
As if money is no
John remembers reaching for the phone to call for help. When help arrived, he was in big trouble.
I was collapsed and unconscious on my kitchen floor, having turned a shade of blue.
John's episode was likely triggered by peanuts. He's been allergic since childhood, but symptoms had always been mild. Nausea, hives, and flushing.
Those who've had a mild allergic reaction to a food substance or
Come
insect
on.
sting at one point can have an anaphylactic
Alright, let's go
reaction
down to the saloon and get drunk.
Dr. Wyatt Decker says
Oh yeah, I
anaphylaxis
forgot we're not
happens
even
when
allowed
your
down
immune
there.
system identifies a substance, such as peanuts, as foreign. This triggers cells called mast cells to release chemicals that cause many symptoms, including dilated blood vessels, low blood pressure, flushing, constricted airways, intestinal problems, and even death. But an injection of epinephrine from an auto-injector can reverse symptoms and save your life.
Pull off the cap, and you hold it to your thigh, and you inject it, and then you hold it in there for 10 seconds.
Dr. Ronna Campbell and Dr. Decker have teamed up with other health organizations to teach people about anaphylaxis. It's called the Be Safe campaign. S means seek support, call 911. A stands for allergen, try to identify what caused your reaction. F is for follow-up, see your doctor afterwards, and E is for epinephrine, the medication John carries with him in case a severe reaction happens again. Dr. Decker says if you have an anaphylactic reaction, it is vitally important to seek emergency medical care. That's because sometimes symptoms can get worse or even recur within 24 to 48 hours. It's also important to talk to your doctor after an allergic reaction to see if you should be carrying an epinephrine auto-injector. The team of experts spearheading this campaign includes members of the American College of Emergency Physicians and the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. The Food and Allergy and Anaphylactic Network is a great source for interested patients or family members. For Medical Edge, I'm Vivian Williams.
Alright, let's just pass out so the effects wear off.
every day.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vince Belanzi. I want to talk with you tonight about food allergies. Now, if you talk to a conventional allergist, they're going to tell you that there is no allergy in fact, they're going to tell you that you can't.
Okay, we can no longer use that thing. I guess all the encounters are done.
They're going to tell you that the skin test isn't even real valid.
Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.